Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. This podcast is being sponsored by Get Loopy. On episode 41, you can hear the story of Isabel, the co-founder and CEO. Get Loopy, get a 20% discount off your first order. GetLoopy.com. Take it from the Ironwoman. We only have very special guests. Today we have John Beede with us. He sounds like a Superman. So we want to hear from John. Who is John who's joining us today?
John is a mountaineer. John is a professional speaker. John's a kite surfer. John's been to 67 countries. I'm John, and I'm happy to be here with you today.
I think this is Superman that we have. So let's talk a little bit about mountaineering. I think we have one thing in common. We both climbed Kilimanjaro. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
I was on an adventure to climb the tallest mountain on every continent. We call it the Seven Summits, and Kilimanjaro is one of them. It's the tallest mountain in Africa. And I went there, I think it was 2010 that I first climbed Kilimanjaro. I've climbed it twice now because I went last year. And I knew that it was the least technical of the seven summits. So I wanted to go with a family member or somebody that was close to me. So I took my dad, and it was really fun to switch the dynamic of, instead of like him raising me, it was like me saying, Dad, you got to put on your socks, like these socks this morning, and here's how to layer your clothes. And all right, you're going to eat this food and need these electrolytes. The role reversal was really fun.
That was cool. And what made you go a second time?
The second time I was considering guiding other climbers as a profession. So I took this group of gentlemen and guided them. They got to the summit, and I determined that guiding wasn't the life that I wanted from there forward, but that was after climbing the seven summits, and still had a wonderful time. Great group of guys. Just tried my hand at guiding on mountains and said, well, I think I got some other stuff going on.
I think that's very interesting. So when we have the role reversal, so first you can go and you're being led, and then now it seems like you're a leader. So what was the pivotal moments that you're like, no, I'm the mountaineer. I'm not the guide of others.
The pivotal moment was looking at the entirety of the adventure. Being on the climb itself was wonderful. Like climbing on the mountain, fantastic. But the marketing, the advertising, the getting signups and waivers signed, selling the trip, arranging hotel stays, all of that, I lost the passion for the climbing. And I realized I'm going to keep this mountaineering thing as something that I do for me. And I'm going to be a leader in other areas that are not only more lucrative financially, but also that I get excited about instead of dragged down for. And there's a level of self-awareness that everybody needs to look at and say, which of the aspects of my life are draining me and which are energizing me. And that's what I did in that moment.
I think that's a very good example. So depending what role you have, it's different. I was a guest on the mountain. I call that like a mountaineer on Kilimanjaro. And we had wonderful guides, and I didn't have to take care of anything. So if I have to think I would be the guide for people, it's a totally different. I think you have the responsibility for others. Meanwhile, it's difficult. I had to take the altitude pills because I got a little sick. So then when you think like you are sick and you have to take care of other people, that's a huge responsibility.
That was a big deal because my lungs are prone to get pulmonary edema. And so because on Everest, I got pulmonary edema, and then sensing it starting on Kilimanjaro while I have these others responsible for me. And it really was the thing of, now I'm at risk and I'm still here to serve them. And do I serve them by turning back, or do I serve them by pushing and putting myself at risk? All of these were real things that happened. And I ended up getting them to summit, but didn't summit myself. And that was an ego. It was a moment of valuing leadership over my own ego. Because if I get up there and I'm going, yay, I made it, we're all here together, and I could have put them all in danger. But if I say, you guys go, I'm here for you. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you succeed, and put my own success on the back burner or second in line. That's what the real definition of sports leadership is. And that's the choice I made in that moment.
That's a very humbling experience. And thank you for sharing that with us, because it feels like when I talk to people about my marathon experiences, they always say, you finished? And I'm like, yes, I started a marathon, I finished a marathon. But then when it comes to Kilimanjaro, everybody thinks like there is a restaurant on top and a souvenir store. That's probably what we have.
Send off some postcards, right?
Send some postcards. It's not like this.
No, you're in the middle of the wilderness. Mm-hmm. You are your own rescue. If something goes wrong, they're literally going to put you in an old wheelbarrow that doesn't have an inflated wheel. It's just like a metal wheel. And they're going to cart you for 2 or 3 days down the mountain. That's how they get you off.
Listening to you, it feels like all those rocks. I just feel it, right?
Yeah, it's not a straight, smooth path. It's like rock after rock. And some of those drops are like 2 or 3 feet. And you'll just be bouncing. Like, you'll get more injured being in the wheelbarrow than just walking on your broken leg.
John, this is an experience. And it seems like when we go on your website, everything looks glamorous. Everything is always, yeah, we can do that. You did the 7 highest summits. Tell us a little bit more about that experience. I mean, people are asking me, will you do Mount Everest? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. But I admire everybody who does that. So tell us a little bit, how can we feel that? How can we get that sense of that mountaineering on Mount Everest? It's not so much the success and the glamorous stuff that is on the website.
To me, mountaineering is like living a little mini life. It's an entire span of living within the course of 7 days or 16 days, or like with Everest, 2 months. You start off and you're so excited. Oh, yes, just like a baby comes out screaming, right? Like you get to the mountain and you're going, oh, I'm here. And then you start walking and you realize, oh, I don't know if I prepared for this. I don't know if I'm ready. Like you start doubting yourself, just like we do when we're like teenagers, and you have all this angst and anxiety, and how am I relating with all the people I'm with? And then you find your groove, just like we do in our 20s, 30s, 40s. And you're like, there's bumps in the road, and you got to figure out like changes as the camps change, just as your age changes. And then you get to the top and you're like, this is the moment. And then you celebrate, and it's also scary because it's, I got to get back down. I'm only actually halfway there because the top isn't the goal. Home is the goal. And then on your way down, you're tired and you say, okay, I think I'm like getting ready to be done with this, and fly home and eat a pizza. And then you get back to the base camp or to the airport that you flew into. And then you say goodbye to your team. You say goodbye to your family, the family members from the mountain. And then you go back to your old life. And so it's this little microcosm of a life where you get to experience all the struggles, all the self-doubt, all the wondering, all the waiting for the weather, all the am I worth it questions, or am I good enough questions, or do I have what it takes questions that we all experience on a day-to-day basis. You get to put that into a snapshot on a mountain and deal with all that whole course there. And for me personally, bringing all those lessons from what I've learned in the mountains into my personal life, that's the real value of climbing.
In the mountain, it's very raw. It's not a dress rehearsal. You're there. And I've been also in Kathmandu, and I was looking at those people packing for the big climb. And what I saw was something in their eyes, and that it was that determination, the great energy, and probably the anticipation. So what goes on in your mind when you're in Kathmandu in Nepal?
Oh, in Kathmandu, it was just fully antsy. I was just anxious to get to the mountain and I didn't want to be in Kathmandu. I wanted to fly out that very day and just get to be able to see Mount Everest. So I was just like a bull waiting to be let out of the gate and just like kicking and rearing. I had so much energy. But we had to do gear checks. We had to purchase the medications that we might need. And we had to meet team members. We had to arrange things back home to make sure that everything was going to be, because we're going for 2 months. So we had to make sure our lives were at least hit the pause button, or like the autoresponder on your email that says, okay, like I'll be away. Sorry, I'll get back to this if I survive Mount Everest. All these things we had to prepare for. You're totally correct that when you're on the mountain, it's raw. I remember getting to the top of the Hillary Step, which is the last big feature before the summit on Everest. And it's like a 30-foot rock climb, which would be a normal, easy rock climb at sea level, but it's the hardest part of the climb because you're at 28,700 feet or something like that. And I get to the top of it and I put my leg into this crack and I lean my weight over onto my leg. And in that moment, I have an 8,000-foot drop that I'm leaning into on this leg that's bending, bracing with that foot. And I just have this realization that if my ankle snaps right now, or if my leg were to break or the rock were to crack, that's it. Nobody can come save me at that height. Life is done. And it's very raw. That was the correct word, because you are faced with your own sense of confidence, of competence in the face of things that are lethal, weather, heights, conditions, avalanches. And that is a very self-confidence building position to be in. And it also is enlivening to be able to look at death and say, I'm dancing at the edge of this, really, is what we're doing in moments like this. It makes you feel more alive than almost anything I've ever experienced. And some people say it's adrenaline junkie, like jumping out of an airplane. And I don't agree with that at all. I think it's like meditation. I think it's like coming to be at peace in these intense moments and realizing that no matter what the world throws at me, I'm solid and consistent and unflappable throughout whatever comes my way. And that's what I've learned from the mountains that I think is one of the best lessons.
So inspiring. And what comes to my mind, my question is, do you think you have a guardian angel taking care of you?
Either I have a fleet of guardian angels and there's hundreds of them looking after me, which is a pretty cool thought, or I am my own guardian angel. People have passed away near me. There have been tragedies in the mountains that I've really had to come to grips with and I've had to work through in the setting of therapy. And they didn't, so I don't know that I get guardian angels and they don't. But what I did do is I have always gone on days that I thought the weather was good. I've said, no, I'm not going to climb on other days. I won't take risks unless I'm 100% sure that I can handle. Like when my leg was in that rock, I'm like, I've got this. I'm a rock climber. Even though there's this huge drop by me, I know how to make this move. So with my competence and planning and preparation, I think in a lot of ways, I've been my own guardian angel.
It's fantastic. I see you there and it's crisp and we've all seen those pictures. And to me, it's really inspiring. And also, you said it's a self-confidence. It's like, I think that's the only word that I can say. It's raw. It's very raw.
And maybe another way of looking at being raw, if I can, is you're so tired from climbing that it makes you peel back all your physical defenses. And we all have this ego, this face that we give the world. I want to appear this way, or I want to pretend and show off. And it's the same reason I practice yoga. It's the same reason I practice kitesurfing. Because when I'm at the end of my energy and I can't hold a pose any longer, yet I'm being asked to, my only choice is to dig within and see what my spirit is made of. And that's very raw and that's very humbling. And same with kiting, when there's a huge wave coming over on top of me and I'm going, how could I possibly withstand this giant wave? I'm already exhausted from kiting for 2 hours surfing. And now I have to handle this thing or otherwise I get buried under the wave. You find this inner strength And that is the rawness, the realness, the authenticness of the human experience that lets you put your ego aside, your defenses aside, and see who you really are and what you're really made of.
Thank you so much, John. This is really inspiring and motivating. Let's climb that
Thanks,
mountain.
Suzanne.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
How inspirational is that? Do you want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount Everest now? I'm sure John has a few more tips for you. Take it from the Ironwoman. We have episodes every Monday, every Wednesday. Don't miss out on cool episodes from very cool people. And get Loopy, order getloopy.com. You get 20% off of your first order. Take it from the Ironwoman. See you next week.